All right. Hello, everybody. Good morning, Law Juniors. It's Friday. Happy Friday. It's May 8th. And hopefully, you got my communication on Tuesday. I think I sent it out to parents and students about the schedule. Hopefully, you have the grading thing under control and understand that. The schedule says we have today's class and then 2 more weeks of this. And then the last week in May is basically, quote, finals week, right? Where we actually only meet one time at the end of the week. Our last class will be Friday the 29th, I think. And that's it. That's it. Like the year's over. Okay. So that's where we stand. I've decided to take the momentum, if you can call it that, from this romanticism and transcendentalism unit, which we're done with now, by the way, but take it into a novel where we can see these ideas dramatized. And there's no novel better than that than The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. All right. I said I was maybe going to blow that off and just give you guys other incremental work. But I like this. I like you reading Huck Finn. All right. You should read some Mark Twain in your school lives. Um, you'll finish it during the summer. I figure we can get about 16 chapters in, and chapter 15 is sort of a moral climax of the novel. If we can just get into the book and get a little momentum, then I think it'll be no problem for you guys to actually finish it over the summer, which will be my expectation. Remember, your English teachers have always assigned you 2 books during the summer, one that they want you to read and one that you want to read. You pick it yourself. It's like a deer book almost, right? We don't want reading to seem like an oppressive activity only imposed by teachers. So the book I'm asking you to read is To Finish Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. It's probably the most controversial novel in American literature. Something about this book has pissed almost everybody off over the years. All right. Extremely controversial for many reasons. And that reason has changed over the years, which reflects how America's changed. What people get mad at about Huckleberry Finn, the novel, is reflective of what's going on in the country at the time. That's why I feel like this book really hits right at the heart of so much in the country. But there's some problems with it. It's written in the 1880s, but it takes place in the 1840s during slavery. And it is told in first person point of view by the lowest member of the society in the South, a white trash kid named Huckleberry Finn. His dad is homeless and a total drunk, and he's grown up kind of by the riverside. Huckleberry Finn is something like a noble savage, God help us, right? So you're going to see all these romantic and transcendentalist ideas come in. And Huck ends up grappling with the bonds of society and his own freedom, right? Versus his own moral conscience, society versus his own individual moral conscience. And what that conscience is, it comes across all kinds of problems. But again, here's a little white trash kid, about 13 years old, telling the story, right? I can tell you the whole plot in basically 1, 2 sentences. This kid escapes an abusive alcoholic father, steals a raft, and sails down the Mississippi River in the South. He runs into an escaped slave that he knows who is running away from his master, plantation master, and they decide to make a run for it together. That's basically it, right? But there's some linguistic problems in here. In this book, as I said, there are 7 different separate types of accent in the book, right? And one of them is the escaped slave Jim, super famous. Some people say that Jim is a racist stereotype, right? I want you to try and decide for yourselves whether that's the case. He speaks exactly as Black people would have spoken in the 1840s. In other words, he speaks something that you'll see in the video I want you to watch between now and Tuesday, called Plantation Creole, right? Actual way that slaves spoke, right? So you can see why I want to show you a video about basically the history of so-called Black English, or Ebonics, it's been called. I don't know if anybody calls it that anymore, but we're talking about so-called Black English, and how is it different from so-called regular standard English? What is standard English, right? We don't even know. But what linguists are starting to figure out is that what people thought was lazy English, so-called Black English, right? Vernacular speak, the way that African Americans speak to each other regularly, right? That it's not lazy English, that it's not some debased version of the Queen's English, that it's actually its own separate dialect, right? So if you did the do now, which I asked you to do, I asked you to, what is Black English and what is a dialect, right? A dialect is a non-standard deviation from a regular language pattern, right? You can call it an accent, but that's not really it. It's its own language with its own rules and internal speech patterns. If I tried to speak Black English to you right now, and you were grew up like hanging out with Black people, or you're Black, you would know that I was an imposter, right? Um, Black English has affected American English all over the place, and that's what this video is about. That's what I want to start looking at, right? Um, as it turns out, many of us were speaking Black English all along. If you came from somewhere else, another country, and started learning English, talking to other American kids, Black English has become part of urban English to a great extent. Like, it has affected everybody in a profound way. And it's not lazy English. Remember, it's its own separate, not separate language, but again, dialect. So that's what we're looking at. I want us to understand the evolution of so-called Black English, right? Why do people speak differently? Well, if you start off speaking another language, linguists know now, and again, we're finding a lot out about this stuff, that your tongue and your lips learn to create sounds largely in the first 3 to 4 years of your life, okay? If you don't learn to make certain sounds or how to do them, it becomes very hard to do that later, right? The TH in English, like the, or this, or that, that's very peculiar to English, and many other people cannot make that sound, right? Many Asian people can't, right? African-American slaves could not make that sound back in the day. And so it's pronounced with a D, dis or dat, this or that. And it creates all different sorts of pronunciation patterns. Some people say Black English, oh, Black English. Yeah, that's like you shorten words, right? Like, not all right, but I, or something like that, or was cracking or something like that, like it's shortenings. No, it's not. It's actually much more complicated than that. There are whole verbal cues and amazing things about Black English. Toni Morrison says that Black English has 5 different types of present tense. You don't have that in so-called standard English. So it's actually richer in some ways than so-called regular standard. Let's call it American English. Okay, so you're watching a bit of a stiff documentary, and I've attached questions that I'd like you to answer too. The problem with the documentary is like, hello, we are white people who are going to explain to you about how Black people talk and all this stuff. It's a little academic and it's a little bit stiff, like I said, right? But it's the only video I've found that talks about this stuff. It's from a series called The Story of English, and it's a particular episode called Black on White. And it talks about the influence of Black English on American English, on world English. Why are kids in Kansas going, yo, man, you know what I'm talking about? I feel ya. White kids in Kansas. How's that possible? Where did that come from, right? I want to look at some of the history of that, and that's what this video is trying to do. Again, it's called Black on White. I'd like you guys to look at the listings that I put under the video title on the agenda, Black on White. It's different forms or stages of evolution that Black English has gone through in American history. You start off with pidgin, right? Gullah, which moves to plantation Creole, what Jim, the character in Huck Finn, is speaking. Then we get to what's so-called jive talk, where music begins to spread Black English, and Black English starts to become cool. White people start talking it to be like hip, or something like that, if you can imagine. And lastly, we end on so-called Ebonics, or Black English today, all right? Not lazy English, not bastardized English. In fact, its own separate, wonderful, colorful addition to the language, one of the main influences on American English, as a matter of fact, and it continues to do that, all right? So we're starting Huck Finn. It takes place during slavery, and everybody is speaking in there exactly as they would have sounded. Twain is really trying to get realistic, all right? But for the character Jim, I want us to understand some of the history behind what he is talking, what he's speaking, all right? I'm going to provide an online version of Adventures of Huckleberry Finn for you guys, so you don't have to buy the book or anything. You'll be able to read it all online, and I will read large sections of it, okay? Another problem with Huck Finn that we're going to have to confront is the use of the so-called N-word, which appears in the book over 200 times, because our narrator is a little white trash kid raised in Southern society who really doesn't know any better. But the question that the book is going to posit is, can we see a little white trash kid, totally uneducated, right, through his natural goodness and conscience, come to appreciate the humanity of Black people, even though the entire society around him sees them as less than human slaves. So maybe you can see why this is the most controversial book, arguably, in American literature. And I think it's the best anti-racist novel by an American writer. It's been accused of being racist. I think it's the greatest anti-racist novel written, again, by an American writer. So we'll see if I can justify that. So we're going to get about 16 chapters in out of 40. I think we can cover 12 to 16 chapters in the remaining time. And again, I'll be reading a lot of that to you, trying to get you into the world of the book. And then the idea is I am going to have you guys finish it over the summer and hold you accountable on the other end when we come back, God willing, to English European literature next year, and hopefully some sense of normalcy back into the schedule. Okay, so enjoy the video. Again, it's a little stiff, but just bear with it. The questions I have you answering are just, they go in chronological order. You don't have to put too much. I just want to kind of hit some high points that I can then review conveniently later and connect this to the book we're about to start. All right. So if you have a copy of Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain lying around, mobilize that thing. Maybe you can read out of that. But as I said, I'm going to provide you guys with an online version for your convenience. All right. Happy Friday. Have a nice weekend. Please watch the video. Scribble down some answers to the questions and get them to me. And next week, I'll set us up with an entree into Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. Have a great weekend, you guys. Happy Friday. See you later. Bye.